And we touched on it a little bit to start, but obviously the big news is Watson is not playing. I'm wondering if the franchise isn't going the other way, and there's still an inside chance he could play. For instance, going into the last game against the Ravens 2 weeks ago, the word was, 14 days ago, oh, he's playing. He's absolutely playing. And then we all woke up Sunday and we're like, wait, what? He's not? My hope here is that the Browns learned from that mistake and they said, here's the way we're preparing. Get ready, PJ, because you're the starter. And there's still maybe perhaps an outside chance that Watson wakes up, takes a shot, throws the football and says, Coach, I feel great. You're in.
They would have to lay hands on him, anoint him with oil, maybe a snake handler. Like, it is not happening.
So what do you hear? What do you know that we don't?
He's not playing the game. PJ is going to play.
Is that, even, what if he wakes up Sunday and says, Coach, I feel great?
Well, again, then they've laid hands on him and they've anointed him with oil, and there's been a miracle because he's
So
not,
what has happened?
How was he medically cleared to play 2 weeks ago?
I was having a conversation on the way in here. Something doesn't
No.
make sense with this.
No.
And I was texting Mikey, and I was in the locker room on Wednesday, and I texted Mike, and I'm like, he can't raise his arm. So the way the Browns locker room is set up, Deshaun stores his cleats really, really high. And he couldn't use, he was doing everything left-handed. You had to climb up on your chair in order to reach up, and he put those up left-handed.
That's bad.
And then he had to go grab his sandals, and he did that left-handed. His right arm was dangling. It was like watching Miles last year after the car accident,
right,
where he couldn't put his shirt arm. His right arm was just dangling.
So how in the hell did the medical staff clear him to play 2 weeks ago?
This is what doesn't make sense. And I said, maybe, we're Zapruder filing this now, right? Where we're watching every move he makes in the locker room in the 3.5 minutes that he's in there with us.
Maybe it was just random that he was using
his
left arm?
I said, maybe
he was just setting everybody
screwing
up
with us. Maybe he's just screwing with us by doing that. He doesn't strike me as a guy that would do that. There are some that absolutely would do that. I don't think he's one of them. I think it's bothering him that much. He couldn't raise his arm.
I wonder what could, there's a variety of possibilities here. Either they're lying about what the injury is, and maybe it's something more serious than just a bruise.
But 2 weeks ago they cleared him.
Is it possible he's had a setback? Well, let me ask you this, G, as someone who took these shots, and Jay, you too in baseball, is it possible that from an injection to relieve the pain, is there ever a scenario where something could happen that could make it worse?
No, it's a needle. No, not that I know of.
Hit something, a nerve. I don't know. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
No. But my question here is bigger than this. My question is, now we're told it's a bruised rotator cuff. We never heard those words leading up to the Ravens game. We just heard bruised shoulder. And then the medical staff clears him. My question on all of this, Jay, is, and I know misdiagnoses, they happen. They're human too.
They may have missed it.
But I'm starting to think that what we're dealing with here is they just missed it.
They missed it.
They missed it up front.
It could be a re-aggravation over a period of time. It could be a misdiagnosis. I don't know. But none of this has made sense. None of it from the start. It's really confusing.
Maybe that first week before the Ravens game, he was throwing some, at least on the side, and maybe that made it worse.
Well, I don't know, because Thursday we heard he threw one ball and came off the field.
Right, on the field.
Right. And Friday he didn't.
But it had also been reported that he had been throwing on the side, not in practice, but warming up and on the side. And we're all just speculating. We have no idea. But clearly something has happened. The fact that, he was game time call, that on Monday the coach says he was cleared to play, that on Wednesday the GM says he's expecting to play against San Francisco.
And all of that has been wrong.
And now he's ruled out even before game day.
That's go back to Watson saying he was going to play.
Yeah.
Wrong. On Monday, Stefanski saying he was cleared to play.
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't look like that was true either.
Yeah.
Wednesday of last week, the GM says, he's playing against San Francisco.
Right. It was a short thing.
And the players, again, after the last game, were adamant, he'll play.
But that was
fine.
Well, they were basing that off the information, no doubt, that the team had.
Right. I'm just saying, even after the first game after the game that he missed, the guys were like,
they were still saying he'll play in San Francisco.
He'll be back for San Francisco. Yeah. For
and
sure.
the longer he sits out, the more that either misdiagnosis or Stefanski and Barry's comments make him look bad.
100%.
Because we've already had one of the toughest Browns in the last 40 years come out and say, I'm sorry, I'm playing. You're not keeping me off the field. When that's friendly fire.
Which is unfair.
It is unfair.
Yeah.
And he's taking friendly fire now that wasn't necessary if the coach and the GM had their messaging correct.
Man, you know what it is, man. They misdiagnosed this thing. Listen, when you get a lot of swelling and inflammation in any joint, right, the first thing they do is like let this swelling and inflammation go down a little bit so that we are able to kind of see and tell. So if you do have a bruise and you got a lot of swelling in there and you can't see anything, when that comes down a little bit, then you can start to see the microscopic tears. Maybe it's this one over here, it's a little tear here. The reality of the situation is he is nowhere near playing football. It's just simple denial at this point. Everything points to it. Here's the thing, if he was close, this is how I know he's not close. If he was close, he'd be outside throwing the football.
Yeah, you would think.
Even
you
if
know
it
what I'm
ain't-
hoping on? When I asked Jason the question earlier, is it possible that because they've been wrong with everything they've told us, is it possible they're wrong again and he runs onto the field Sunday like Willis Reed coming out of
Doesn't seem
the
like
Knicks
it.
tunnel and he plays?
Yeah.
That's what I'm banking on.
Right.
I'm hoping for. I'm not banking on it. I'm hoping that
Yeah.
they've been wrong. Their track record is wrong.
Right.
And the
So I hope they're wrong here and he plays.
The tea leaves, what Jason knows this, coaches do not like playing their starting quarterback behind backup linemen.
Right.
No, that's true.
If you got Joe Bitonio out and your top pass catcher or tight end out
and key blocker on a lot of situations.
and very key blocker helping out our guy over there, number 71, you're not going to play him anyway.
Yeah. It does seem like
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they essentially unofficially ruled him out on Thursday, that alone tells you he's not close. No, if you're ruled out by the middle of the week, you're not anywhere close to playing. I mean, at this point, we just got to hope for the best that he can be back. Like, I'm not. If do any of you feel comfortable saying he's going to play next weekend?
No, I don't.
How do you feel
No, in
comfortable
fact,
until you see him?
in my notes for
Yeah.
today's show, I said it's unlikely we'll see him until Seattle at the earliest. In my mind, I hope I'm wrong.
And they're going to have to win. Like, they're not. Obviously, their odds of winning this game without him are very slim.
They can play
you
with
should
Indy
be able
with
to
the
beat
backup.
Indianapolis. I think you should be at least competitive with Indianapolis, if not beat them.
Yes.
You're going to have to come
Without
up-
him.
I did the show Barbershop yesterday. I said, you're going to have to plan as if Deshaun Watson's not coming back. That's what you're going to have to do.
For the year?
Yeah. You got to plan it as if he comes back. That's a.
Well, they're not ready for that because they traded their serviceable backup.
Well, they better start
And now
getting-
they're on quarterback number 3
Yeah.
in game number 5.
Well, they have to start thinking fast forward. The problem is they're thinking in the back. You got to be thinking forward. You got to think worst case scenario, best case scenario.
Okay, so-
best case scenario is he's back by Seattle.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario is you think he's coming back, he has a setback, and then he's all the way back at square one.
And by the way, if he's really going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, and they had any inkling of this 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago at this point against
Get a
Tennessee,
quarterback here as soon as possible.
how it's egregious that they haven't brought in somebody.
This will
Yeah.
be somebody here right now.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But
You're right,
now.
because-
It should have happened already.
But the Jets went through this. Who is there to go get? There's nobody to go get.
Listen,
Who are you going to get?
the best guy out there is probably Carson Wentz.
Zach Wilson, they did draft him
Well,
like number
we
one.
had this conversation
they roll
2
with
weeks
it.
ago,
Yeah.
and we brought up Carson Wentz, and both you and I did, and we
I'll
were
take him.
murdered for it.
I'll take him.
Well, no, you guys, we talked about Matt Ryan, which I don't.
no,
don't like, but-
the top of my
Listen.
list was Carson Wentz.
Foles.
You can't take a guy off the street. He's going to need a month.
Well, right.
Well, that's what I'm
why,
saying. They
That's
should have
why-
brought him in
that's-
3 weeks ago.
Which is what we said. Like, that's exactly what we sat here and said. And now you're like, because with each week, you're right, Jay, nobody's going to come in here and learn this playbook. It's one thing if you're a wide receiver or a running back. You're not learning a playbook in a week.
And everybody hates Wentz, so I don't know. But anyway, that
There's
ship is
nobody to go
at,
get.
at this
There's
point, the
nobody
ship
to
is
get.
sailed.
Who do you want?
At this
do you
point,
want P.J. Walker or do you want Carson Wentz?
I mean, I would
That- I
rather.
don't even have to think about that.
3 weeks ago, it seemed like Watson was day to day, so it wasn't a big deal.
I know, but to G's point, if he is out long term,
Yeah. Sure, I'd rather have Wentz, but at this point, I think it's too late.
I think last year we talked about, we all said, well, listen, if Watson's out for the year, the season's over. This was before we knew he was going to be it was going to be 11 games.
Right.
And I would agree with that because our defense was like Swiss cheese. We had holes everywhere. This year, because we have the defense that we have, And because I don't think anybody's going to sprint away from the pack in the North, it's incumbent upon this team to not gentleman's punt like they did last year.
Yeah.
Get a quarterback in here. Get him acclimated, even if it takes 3 weeks. I'd rather play weeks 7 through 17 with Carson Wentz with a couple weeks in the system than P.J. Walker.
I agree, but in the short term, I'm curious about Bitonio because when Jason, you said you were in the locker room after the last game.
He looked fine to me.
And he was fine. What happened?
I don't know. I mean, listen, a guy
and he has this streak. He never misses time.
A guy could. I'll go back to Deshaun. I don't know how he finished the game. If he was this hurt, how did he even finish the game?
Listen, I wondered the same thing. Now, sometimes with the bruise, it's you and the adrenaline. You just keep going, and then all of a sudden, when the game is over, you're like, "Oh my God, what happened?"
And at the time, I was confused. I'm like, "Since when do starting quarterbacks come out of the game in blowouts? They just hand the ball off, right?" And I'm like, "Well, that looks a little weird." And now hindsight, maybe he couldn't even hand the ball off, right?
So to go back to Bitonio, maybe it's the same thing where it's the adrenaline. You're loose, you're warm. You can fight through it, and then the next day when you wake up, you're like, oh man. I'm just telling you, when he left the locker room, he looked fine to me. Like I don't even think he got X-rayed or anything, or he looked fine.
We've all probably sprained ankles before. It was always incredible to me after the second you took your shoe off, especially if it was a high top.
Number one rule: don't take your shoe off.
You could literally look at it and just watch it grow.
That's great.
Don't take your shoe off.
Because now that the circulation is flowing, all that blood is accumulating in, and the fluid, and it blows up. So maybe that was the case with Bitonio. Also, though, I want to ask you guys this: if you're Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, and you do know for sure, and it looks like that's where they are, that the quarterback can't go, and you've got a Pro Bowl lineman and a tight end that's paid a lot of money, and they've got some issues. Is this a gentleman's punt with these guys? And they're just saying, look, let's not risk it. Let's get everybody healthy for Indianapolis. It's likely an L. They're not probably saying that out loud, but you know what time it is if you're these guys.
Especially if you don't. And by the way, Bitonio is one of your guys, right? So I already know he probably wanted to play because he has a consecutive streak. But I believe behind closed doors, the communication process happened. They said, listen, Sean's not playing. Deshaun ain't close to playing. There's no way you need to be going out here for this game.
Take the extra 2 weeks.
We already know what it is. Just we're going to use this as an extra bye for you. You done had a whole month off now. After you skip this week, we'll be fine. David Njoku, I don't even know how the heck he even played.
Well, I don't either.
And that's the one that makes you think that maybe there's something to this because nothing else happened to Njoku this week. It wasn't like he's dealing with a hamstring.
No.
He burnt his face. It looks brutal, but he played through it last week.
Compare what he looked like when he played last Sunday to compare to what he looks like now. He looks 100% improved.
So it feels like, well, if he was able to play last week, he should be able to play this week. Maybe this is the team telling him not to. Even more than Bitonio, because Bitonio, we don't know. It's some sort of injury. Whereas Njoku, he didn't have an injury. He had I guess it's an injury, but
it's a burn. It wasn't a football-related injury.
Right.
But you can see how if you have to put your helmet on over that, probably a risk of infection.
Yeah.
So
but
that's
it doesn't seem like I'm no expert. It doesn't seem like that's something that is going to feel worse a week later after he played through it.
Are you hearing anything, Jay?
No, I don't know that it is a punt because they rolled with DTR last week. P.J. Walker, they feel like gives them a better chance to win.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The Ravens game with the playbook,
turnovers.
P.J.'s started a number of NFL games before. He beat Baker for the job last year in Carolina. Like it's not. I tend to think Bitonio is not.
Bad, though.
Bitonio's not gonna just say, okay, I'm gonna take this week.
No, but G's point was it wasn't Bitonio's call.
They're not out yet,
coming
though.
to him saying, unlikely to play, though.
Right.
It means it looks like they're not going to. But, I couldn't tell you what P.J. Walker's game is.
I didn't realize that was P.J. Walker.
Other than the fact that he's thrown
I didn't know
for
he played
5
for the Bears.
touchdowns and turned it over 15 times.
Zach pointed out to me this week the Bears owed him guaranteed money this year, and they still cut him. Like that tells you what we're dealing
for
with.
A rookie. The Bears' backup is a rookie who was not even highly drafted. I think he was like a 5th, 6th round pick.
He's not good. Obviously.
No, he's bad. He's not really a quarterback. He's not.
This is. Yeah, I think they need to really take a look at some of these quarterbacks because the team is too good to kind of punt on. And you've already punted last year, and this is the make or break year.
Well, with this defense, you can't.
Yeah.
Punt.
You can't.
Well,
There's no way.
Punt on.
That's
this
why I
season.
don't think anyone's punting this game.
Yeah, I don't think so.
The coaching staff, the front office, everybody knows what's at stake this year. I don't think you can punt on anything.
I
Nobody's
wouldn't have
punting
picked him out of a lineup.
Now, listen.
I did not have him looking like that, and I don't know why.
Now,
I mean, to me, he looks like an intramural referee.
you know
just-
what? Dang, bro, for real? That's crazy.
Because I nailed it, didn't I?
That's crazy because it's not even JV, it's intramural. So it's like it completely doesn't count.
It's at the Y.
There's no win-loss record. You can't go look the stats up from that.
6 o'clock on Wednesday.
Ref
They don't keep
games Mike's
score.
playing in.
They're just doing it
He
for the.
could be an umpire in my baseball
Doing
league.
it for the-
Maybe that's why I
doing
went
it for
there.
the workout.
I wish him the best, and I hope he shocks the world, but that's what it would be.
Yeah.